Hello and Allah Pa, my dear friends, the Baha'is, non-Baha'is, everyone in the planet. My name is Abbas Tamori. Time is 10 minutes past 10. Today is, I believe, 21st of November 2011. Last night I spoke about the World Order of Baha'u'llah in the terms of Baha'i government at a local level. I'm going to expand the subject to bring it to a national level and bring some of the salient features that I personally think would be the part in the ingredients and component of such governments. Last night I spoke, and in before, essentially in the Baha'i faith there's three levels of government: local, national, international. And the Baha'is essentially elect the people in where they live. That would be local. And that is the main government in the world, really, that directly relates to people. National and universal are in control of this local, and the international in the control of national. They are more like a body of reference for the people if they have a problem at the local level. Otherwise, that is the real government. The best thing about it is that once in a year it will have to be changed, only once in a year. Even if it becomes a local house of justice, the terms is only 1 year. So there's not much time that you choose somebody and they do things that they want to do and without, your permissions. The very essence of this Baha'i government, even at the national level, would act very much in the same way. Now, however, Baha'is at the time, they are open to the subject to decide how the government should work. But definitely it works at the local level, that the locals government, they would elect the cities in a country. They have liaisons and people that they will elect, and in return those people would bring up the government. And in my opinion there won't be one people. There would be a body of the government, probably a president who would appoint other people with him to work. So, but now it's not like this. Like, I live in Guelph, but I have to pay tax to the provincial government, to the federal government. All these three levels of government I'm dealing with. As a Baha'i, we don't. We just deal with the local government. We pay tax to them. Everything goes to them. They, on our behalf, they deal with the national and international bodies in the world. So less stress for people. That is the main body of the government, the local level. The other governments are important, definitely, but they're not so big. Let's say, in a city, in a country, so many cities are there, so those cities, they would elect a government. But countries such as the United States, right now, which we really are dealing with, every state is almost like a country of itself. This definition of nations will change in future. Every one of those states, they would have their own national government. And they will create a universal government in return. So you could say the present government of the United States is like a universal government in a continental base. And that's what Shoghi Effendi says. It says it's perfect, but except that it's regional. It's only in a region of the world. Which means is the government of the United States was some kind of a government like that in the entire world to cover it up. That would have become a universal government, you see. So, and that has created a lot of headache for the people in the United States, because people pay tax to the central government. Central government is not really dealing and relating themselves with the people, very little anyways. but they're getting most of the money. As a result, they go and do all kind of things that they seem, to fit to themselves. They're all rich people. They don't have the problem of people. They want to solve the problem of the world. Meantime, taxpayers are paying for it. My observations is that essentially when I look at the people in the Middle East and US and Canada, West, that I've been seeing, there's no prejudice here. I've seen people in the Middle East, essentially Easterns, Indian, Chinese, when you look at them individually, they're much more fit as an individual than the people in the West. They are, greedier. They are very aggressive. They're all plan-oriented people. When they come down here in Canada and US, they show their real face in a country as such, and you can see they're all getting somewhere. Then the actual Canadian-born individuals here, they're not as motivated as these people are. And when I look at and nevertheless, these people, apparently strong, they create such bad governments. And the people of the West, they're not as aggressive, as goal-oriented, as, money-saving machines. They don't save things. But yet they have a better government. You're trying to analyze what's happening here. In my opinion, the knowledge of an individual human being in the West, personal information, is much more wider, deeper, and bigger than those guys in the Middle East. For one thing, they're not eating the manna of the past, which is their religions. It's outdated, expired food. As they eat, they become crazy. So, if per se compare an Iranian, to a Canadian citizen, I can see this fellow Iranian is, for relatively speaking, to form a government using democracy. He's really in a minus range. He's like -1. In Canada, there might be +1. It seems not a lot of difference, but when it gathers and assembles, it becomes big. Why? Because 1,000,000 -1, when added, it becomes -1,000,000. So the government, which is elected by a -1 person, it's a huge minus in the center. This is why the elected body in Iran, in, other places, you can think of it, Libya, Egypt, the actual government elected by the people is more stupid than the individual people. So this is a bankrupt regime. Every time these people, they get together, because what they put on the table is -1, it's not that bad. You don't go bankrupt on -1. You could individually do a lot of good things. But when thousands of you get together and add up to create a regime, it creates a huge minus in the center. I've said by joke, every time Iranians are like jigsaw puzzles. Every time you put it together, Ayatollah comes out. Like their unity is their enemy. It's crazy, isn't it? And the West is not like that. They're just +1 in comparison. National, average knowledge and information of a Canadian as opposed to an Iranian, with a reference to their government. No, I'm not talking about the reference of family and all that. Just a reference to their government. And understanding politics and whatnot. These guys, they're +1. When they get together, they create a government that's, +1,000,000. So the government is much more understandable, smarter than any individual in Canada. So in this way, the democracy works. People in the West have trained and planned and learned democracy for a couple hundred years. People in the Middle East are just trying to see what this is, and it's not working for them. So, going to my note, somebody was asking me that where your democracy comes from, what is the reason behind it. I said it seems that in the West, definitely it was the case between the Etruscans, where democracy came in Italy, They were all dictators. So when there are 30 million dictators, nobody can dictate to anybody anything. Nobody accepts. They're all stubborn dictators. What do? Then they go to democracy because they say, nobody can convince anybody. We're all like to dictate. Therefore, election comes. And in Iran, especially that I know, all the people individually, they're not dictators. They're not as stubborn at all. And I've seen, this is why their families are very, very strong. They say women are half of the man in the right, but actually women, they rule the house, even there. And as a result, people are not dictator, but there's few bad apples in there, and they're dictators, exploiter, and they use the rest of the people and create dictatorship. It's a joke, but it's some ways you can think about it, So, let's talk about these systems of the governments, that are in the world. Shobi Effendi refers to the four of them. He talks about democracy, people, ruling over the people. Dama, I think it means people, and krasi, which is a word comes from Iran actually. It means kursi, which means throne, which means democracy, where people, sitting on the throne and talking to each other and ruling. And then it says theocracy. Theo means religion, where the religious government comes into power. And autocracy, which is the dictatorship, really. And aristocracy, where these royalties, they come in as a matter of inheritance, and they want to inherit one after another. And that's another form of government. He says there are bad elements with this thing, Shobi Effendi says, but yet there are good elements with them. The future government of the world, the Baha'i government, will have to take in consideration to look at what are the good things with democracy and what are the bad things. I share my own opinion here. So I spoke why democracy doesn't work in countries like Iran. Westerners are trying to push them, democracy. But democracy for children doesn't work. Imagine you're in a house, you and your wife, and you got 5, 6 children, ranging from 5 to 12. Now an issue comes up. Buy this fridge, buy that car, live this house, anything. Imagine if you have the equal vote, equal right to these kids, and all of you decide what to do. So the children in their number, if they're equal in right to you, and voting right, their decisions will definitely be inferior to that of the mother and the father, who are in minority in the number. Would that work? No. Those people, the children, they do not have the power and experience to enter to democracy. This is the case with the people in the East, Middle East. They haven't been all like this all the time, but at this junction of the time, they are like this. So it doesn't work, isn't it? Democracy has really a lot of bad things about it. This is one of the things that I just mentioned right now. What it's really in the West, when you talk democracy, it seems from something greatest invention of a thought that has ever been invented, is revealed by God. Whoever did this is the way to go. The Westerns, they don't understand anything but this. It might be so right for them, but let's just put it under the microscope and see what are the things democracy is doing to the West. Here, democracy is synonymous to freedom. Freedom means democracy. That's what people say. And freedom is also synonymous to happiness. In my opinion, democracy does not bring freedom of the individuals, and freedom actually does not create happiness at all. There has to be a combination of many elements. For example, democracy in the West has destroyed the families. Democracy is as good as the outside road, but as soon as it comes in the house, where there's a man and a woman, and they have to apply democracy, equal right, and voting as a result, where do we go between two people? Where does voting ends? Nowhere. It doesn't work. You can create a threesomes family. Some people like it, but that's not going to be as a waywardness. It's not going to work either. Man hasn't done that before. He cannot do it now. So democracy dies right at the door, but it likes to penetrate itself within the house, and that's where the families lose their grip over their children, over everything. Family, which is the most important element, the unit of a live society, is to be made out of a cell, a unit called family, in order to create an organic society. A team, not a mass, as Aldous Huxley says. In that case, it dies. So democracy is bad for that, totally. So when you look at it, in the West, democracy, in my opinion, is the dictatorship of the majority. Minority have to swallow it. That's it. And to me, that is not serving that purpose, especially if it wants to be applied in the whole world as a whole. It doesn't work. Creations of democracy in the United States, it's very much in the West, it depends on the populations. If the population of a given society is a village of 200-300 people, everyone has the opportunity to become the reeve, the mayor. If it is 5,000, it's feasible. I don't know, 200,000, still workable for a lot of people. But when it becomes 15 million, a city, who can go there? Only few. When a country as big as the United States or China becomes 300,000, 300 million people, how do you think people vote? Democracy there is by the coordinate of the democracy is how much money you have really to advertise yourself. Those who are the best for the society, sincere, knowledgeable, they have no chance. So democracy dictates itself in this manner to destroy and suppress all the good people that they could become president and save the situation, become the members of Congress and whatnot. No one trusts them, neither Congress and Senate. I actually don't think they're that bad. But there are certainly many legitimate, eligible, absolutely perfect Americans that they could run the society, but they have no chance because of the pocket, because of the superficial that's involved, such as. So the bigger the number, the less the human right index. A human does not have as much of a right in the United States as it is in Canada. You try to go do anything to a president of the United States, good luck. You need tons of money. In Canada, you can very easily do it because the population is less. So this excessive, evil of the excessive centralization, which Shoghi Effendi says, you can easily see it. The more the people, the bigger the gravity. In the center, you're bound to create a black hole. You see, we don't have a black hole in the solar system because there's so many planets around it. Sun thrives. But in the middle of the galaxy, where there's billions and trillions of stars, you create black hole right in it. All right, so that's about dictatorship. The democracy, it basically kills the individuals. Children and family will die, and eventually everyone is depressed, suppressed, on the drug and the smoke. And man, as an individual character, cannot thrive. Happiness cannot. It just gets going. So, enough said about democracy. What about theocracy? Well, look at the past. Theocracy of the Pope in Europe, inquisitors, burning people because of the knowledge, didn't work. Before Arabs attacked Iran, there was theocracy in Iran. under the Zoroastrians, they would not allow the Persian to read books. They said reading and knowledge is only for the aristocrats. Normal people, if they catch with a book or reading, they would get arrested. Because a couple of other religions, such as Mazdaki and Manavi, came, and they were challenging the priests and the Zoroastrians, and they thought that these guys, they might win over us, and then they stopped all the reading and writing. This is why they lost to Arabs, because Islam came with a book. Well, that was, for the time itself, it was very interesting to the Iranian to hear this thing. So it was not just the defeat of Iranian by the Arabs, it was their own revolution to bring their own government down. Or the present time, even after that, when Muslim came into power, the caliphs, where they were in power, they were really horrendously bad people. They were all huge theocrats. They killed people like Hallaj, burned quite a few of them, and did all kinds of things. In the Iran, at a time of theocracy, so theocracy is not a very good thing, because those who are inheriting the religion, they're not as good as the prophet of God, and they're not informed, well informed about it at all. There's no affinity between them and the prophets of God. Autocracy, where the dictatorship of a person comes, we've seen quite a few of those, such as Hitler and Mussolini in our time. And in a small area, a small city basically, like Dubai, it might work if the dictator is a good man. But if the country is big, even if the dictator is good, he just simply do not have the power to connect himself to all the individuals at all the time. So under dictatorship, under the autocrats, one-person society, it is impossible to create a balance and justice for all the people, because one autocrat, as a human being, as good as it could be, he cannot control everything by himself. So that doesn't work unless the autocrat is God himself. As we know, he has no body, he's not interested in doing that. Baha'i, if it is a sign of it, he's not interested, he likes a different system. And finally, aristocracy, which we've seen it lots of time in Europe, inheritance of the king to another king and a king's son. Again, it works, it used to work, but it is not anymore, because the moment that the son has to be the heir and the blood of that king, well, it just cuts the opportunity of thousands of other great people in that country that their luck is gone and limited. They cannot come and do anything for society, because it has to go to that particular blood of the aristocrats and the royals. And imagine working mankind has changed them all of that. Shaykh Effendi says that the Baha'i government is really a combination of the goodness of all these religions, and then he has additions. Wherever they're short, they do something else. I don't know what to call it. I could say scientocracy. A scientocrat, a man who uses knowledge and science. The people, they use science as the way to rule, and that is the real prime directive in the Baha'i faith manifesto. One of the 12 manifesto in the Baha'i faith, the principle is that religion has to be according to science and logic. Science cannot be according to religion. Religion has to put up with the science and logic. It's the finding of a man, whatever the limit of man is, it has worked and brought him up to here. So there's a way to find out. So he has made the Baha'i faith, God has made the Baha'i faith a very open and dynamic religion. For example, Shaykh Effendi says, any good movement, anything good idea can be embedded within the faith of God. Essentially, anything that's good in the world, proven scientifically, because that is the measure, and logically, it's a part of the Baha'i faith. Moreover, Baha'is have the power to take the baton from God, from his manifestation, from Baha'u'llah, to continue his work and build it up. Why? Because Baha'is elect the universal laws of justice that can enact laws which are infallible, equal in the authoritative figure, equal to that of the Baha'u'llah. Okay? So, and that way it's an open religion. His Divine Majesty, Baha'u'llah, the greatest event